is social justice? And I would say, when I ask that question, I ask, what is it in reality, and what is it as far as how the general public basically sees it?
Mm-hmm. So social justice could also be termed redistributive justice, and you'd be accurate because the concept really predates the term. The term became popular at the turn of the century in the United States, really because of people who went to England and admired Fabian socialism and wanted to bring that to the United States. Fabian socialism is socialism by degrees. So instead of a revolution like Marx said was inevitable,
Right.
this would be more a gradual process. So Fabian socialists are also called progressives. They don't mind taking time to reach their goals. They don't have to get it immediately.
Much like we see today in the political arena, would you say?
Well, we have some real revolutionaries today who seem very demanding. The hard left wants their revolution now, and they're very immediatist on that. And there's always been people like that. But yeah, I would say a lot of those in the upper echelons, they're going with the flow, and they're strategizing, and they're taking their time. And Gramsci is credited with the term cultural Marxism. And then in the Frankfurt School, these are all different iterations of socialism. You have Marcuse. And Marcuse is the one that's credited with this phrase called the Long March to the Institutions. You've probably heard that. Mm-hmm. And so people will say that Gramsci and then Marcuse initiated this direction that progressives have taken in the United States, where they gain influence in a certain field, like education, let's say. And once they conquer education, then they move on to the next thing, and they'll conquer entertainment, and then they'll conquer religion, which is really the process we're in now. It was the last pillar to fall, and it's in the middle of falling. So Fabian socialists are okay with gradually reaching their goals. But to answer your initial question, which is very simply social justice and what it is, social justice, I trace it back to the French Revolution, Jean-Jacques Rousseau being the philosopher of the French Revolution. And he believed in three primary things. And I think you're going to see this in every iteration of social justice, even the ones we've talked about, whether it's Fabian socialism or whether it's liberation theology or BLM or any of these things. What you'll find are these three components. Number one, the idea that we should have some kind of a egalitarian equality. And if we don't have that, then things are fundamentally unjust. And what I mean by egalitarian, that's the French word for equality. It really just means equality of outcome, that everyone is going to have the same amount of stuff, the same amount of influence, the same amount of privilege, and no one has an advantage over anyone else. Everyone has the same political voice. In order to get there, though, we have a problem. This is the second pillar, or the second component. The problem is that there's all these institutions preventing that from taking place. So you have the church, you have the family, you have business relationships, you have all kinds of things that are hierarchies that are preventing equality from truly taking place.
The legal system?
Yeah, sure. The legal system would be part of that. Yeah, I mean, I think probably the legal system has been targeted more than almost anything else in the last few years for being a place where there's all this injustice and disparity. And then in order to challenge these institutions that are preventing equality, we have to create, this is the third aspect of social justice, we have to inevitably come up with some kind of a totalitarian regime or a central authority that's powerful enough to crush all these unfair institutions. And so in our context, that looks like the government, the national or the general government comes in and says, hey, you local police departments, you're not obeying the rules, you're being bigoted. We're going to come in and we're going to take over because we can be trusted with ensuring equality is maintained. And so more and more power is ceded to the general government or the central authority. And that authority becomes the policeman or the grand policeman that makes sure that everything's equal in all these other institutions. Now, the irony of the whole thing is that if the whole problem is that disparities exist between people or people and institutions, the whole logic behind social justice is to create the biggest disparity the world's ever known, an all-powerful, almost godlike central authority versus an individual, and get rid of all the mediating voluntary associations, so forth.
Right.
And so you actually create a big disparity in the name of trying to eliminate disparities. So the whole thing kind of undercuts itself. But that's in a nutshell what social justice is. And every iteration, whether it's BLM or the climate justice or the Me Too movement, you're going to find the same three things come out there, and there's going to be different villains and different heroes, and different. You can assign different labels, but it's going to be the same basic framework.